Welcome, everyone. My name is Federico. I do stuff with Cuttle all the time. You might have seen me in some of the tutorial videos. Um, I have a lot of interests. I kind of keep an art practice alive, and I make a lot of things, varying from illustrations to like handcrafted items. And of course, I have like a big interest in digital design. Um, So that's one of the things that kind of drew me into starting to work with Cuttle, because I love the look of handmade things, and I love the kind of wonky looks of certain drawings and things like that. But machines are really fun. Like I love playing with the laser cutter and 3D printers, and of course the Cricut has been really fun for me. I like making a lot of things out of paper, which is a segue onto the subject of today's live stream, which is the inspiration for these was looking at these diagrams, these origami diagrams, uh, and thinking that the line work is really elegant, and it can be like a simple inspiration for making your own sort of line work based designs, um, and so the idea I had at some point, I mean, these designs, I guess my partner came up with the idea because this crane, it's kind of like a sort of timeless design you see all over Japan, and she wanted something that kind of represented that. And so we made it together. And the way these ones started is that we saw a few like crane designs, and then at some point we actually just made a crane, like an actual paper crane like these. and and we were like, oh, this looks really cool. What about like taking a picture of it in at different angles, and then tracing it. So that's how that one came about. That particular design, um, this one that I was showing you before. Um, and so at some point I was thinking, oh, what about you just look at other places, um, for like kind of line work that has been already made. You don't necessarily have to take a picture. And so the big one in our household is this origami book. So I was showing people before that it's a fairly chunky. Um, so this is the first thing I want to tell you is that um, I think there are multiple ways to find these origami diagrams for inspiration. So I would say books is a big one. The second one is, of course, searching online. I'll show you a couple in a moment. And then the last one is, making your own and taking pictures of it. So just let's look at this one for a couple of minutes just to see what I like. So I actually made a couple of marks. So I kind of bookmarked this one because this one is fairly complex. But it's really nice how they they did the drawing and then they added the circles around it. I think that kind of gives it a cool, elegant way of framing it. Um, I really like this crab. This is a cool looking crab. It's very simple. I don't know if it's fully recognizable as a crab all the time, but I think it's really neat. Um, Let's go through my bookmarks, see what I found. There are like endless designs for cranes, and this is just another one. And also, I like that little smiley eye. Also, notice how they added the shade. I think that's a sort of like design element that can also be copied or used for your own designs. Let's see what I bookmarked next. Look at this llama. That's a cool llama. One thing I would recommend when looking at these designs is that often you'll see that the instructions have these sort of flat steps, and you'll often find that the steps are very flat. I have another example here. This is a box of little origami paper, and it has a crane instructions on the back. And so what I'm saying is that notice how, all the steps are very flat, but then often you'll find the sort of finished result is drawn kind of like in a sort of 3D way. And so my recommendation is don't shy away from the sort of 3D look. That can be traced, and and those are useful. Let's just look at a couple more here that I found kind of fun. Oh, the fox. This is the favorite fox of this book. I think this one, for example, would be really good. Like, it's a picture. Zoom in a little bit. So you can see it's a picture, and it had like some kind of slight 3D elements, and that can be effective. You could trace those, and it would work. Once again, with the like circle around it, that's a cool design element. I actually made this fox. I followed these instructions, and I made one because I thought it'd be cool to just make it. And sometimes it's nice to just look at it and like, move it around, and then take multiple pictures of it to also get your own sort of reference image. So a couple more, and then we'll move on. I think this duck is very cool and charming. And I was actually just looking at this book before I started, and I noticed there were a couple I didn't. That chicken is very cool. And look, because the folds have been made a little differently, you can have like different characters. This one has like a thicker tail, and this one has a sort of more like roost, kind of staying in place. The chicken is cool. I thought the peacock would also make a cool design. So that's for the first way of finding designs. Books are great. Then the other thing I wanted to show you was, I collected a few images from search over here. And these were just, doing searches online, and I just collected the images. Another kind of dove design, a couple actually. I like this swan. This is a more like organic folding style. But of course you can always like hit, search for something like origami diagram or diagrams. And there are going to be tons of useful ones. Cobra. I don't know. The cobra looks like it's wearing a tie. This butterfly is cool. And once again, you can choose one of the flat ones, or you can go with the sort of three-dimensional finished ones. Another useful search is that if you're looking for a specific animal, origami crab, for example, a lot of variations on crabs. So, images from search, images from books, as I was just showing you. The book I was just showing you, I took a bunch of pictures of the things I liked. So this is a cicada, a little dog, the duck, the horse would be cool. I love the simplicity of this hermit crab. So I'll be sharing those images in a project. And then finally, fold some pieces and take some pictures of them, which is exactly what I did right here. I folded the crane and the fox. And I took a bunch of pictures. I took like, I don't know, at least 10 of each. Just like trying out different angles, moving it around, seeing what kind of looked recognizable, because you don't always get the look that you want. If I look at the fox straight ahead like that, it's not super effective. But I took these pictures of the fox and the crane, and I think this could work quite well. So I'm also gonna share these. So let's get started with the actual, using Cuttle to do this kind of thing. So I already have a project here, and I chose this dove to show you. So I simply added the image. That's you can add an image on Cuttle by going to File and importing an image. and then I placed it here. Initially, the image has 100% opacity, so it's going to look kind of like this. And it might be larger than what you want, which is going to be the first step I'm going to talk about, which is, so I'm going to lower the opacity. So I went too far with that number. 3000 is a bit much. So I'm going to lower the opacity to something like that, so I can see what I'm doing. The next thing I'm going to do is that I want to really know what size my earring is going to be. I want to sort of roughly know. The ones I made are about, grab my ruler. Just look at the size. So these are about 1.5 inches tall. So that's an important reference to know to get when you get started. You want to know roughly how big you want it, because that's going to influence a couple of numbers. And one way to do that is to grab a shape, something like a rectangle. And because the one I have was 1.5 inches tall, I could actually scale this rectangle to 1.5. I'm going to type it 1.5. And if your image is bigger than that, for example, if I start with an image that looks like these, then I would start by scaling the image so it roughly fits on the overall size that I want. So as you can see, my image is a little bit bigger, but then, at the end, I want something that is, I want to make this one a little bigger. I want to call it 1.75. So 1.75 inches. So I'm just going to size it and place it there. And I could keep this rectangle as a guide if I wanted to. But I'm actually, so to turn it into a guide, you would go over here while the rectangle is selected, and you can click this show guides option. So you could keep that in mind, but I think it's enough to just kind of size the image at the beginning. So I'm just going to get rid of my reference rectangle here. So select it and hit delete. And so here's the meat of the project. We want to trace the lines of our reference image. And for that, I'm going to use the pen tool. So here's the pen tool up here, or you can press P. And I know the pen tool can be intimidating. Lots of people that use design software initially are like, I hate that pen tool. that's kind of, oh, thank you. Sorry, I got the wrong screen here. Thanks a lot. I didn't. Anyway, so back again. I have my image here. Sorry about that. New to live streaming. So I got my image here, and I want to start tracing the. I think I'm back, right? Yeah. So I'm going to start tracing the image itself. Cool. Thanks for letting me know. So I'm going to use the pen tool. So you can click on the pen tool or hit P again. And so anyway, I was saying that lots of people are intimidated by the pen tool initially. This is like a tool that exists in a lot of graphic design software like Illustrator or Inkscape. But I thought that this project in particular would be a fun, kind of easy way of getting started with the pen tool, because we're not going to do any of the we don't need to do any of the fancy curvy stuff or anything like that. We simply need to click on the points that we want. And so we're going to use all straight lines. It's another kind of idea of these. So let's start by tracing this wing back here. So maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. So I'm just going to hit the points of the wing. So click for a point, then move it where I want it. I'm not holding the mouse. I'm just moving put it where I want it, then click for the other point, then click for the next one, click for the next one, click for the next one, and then I'm gonna close this polygon simply by clicking on the final point or anchor. And so I'm done with that particular one. And so I can see it here. And so for this one, I'm gonna keep it easy. I'm just gonna trace a bunch of polygons. So let's do the same operation. Pen tool, and then try the next one. Sometimes you can actually use the previous one to get started or not. So I'm gonna say this one. Click here, click here, click here, click here. And when I'm done, I'm gonna just click the selection tool. So that's my next polygon. And I'm not super concerned right now about, these connections. I'll come back and correct that. So let's carry on. I'm gonna do this one. I can actually snap it to the corner there. And I'm gonna finish it. I can also press escape when I'm done. And if I wanna see what's happening, I can always make the image not visible. So that's my progress. I'm gonna make it visible again and continue tracing. So here, here. And I'm aiming to close those polygons. And so I'm gonna go for the next one. And it's totally fine if they're overlapping too. It's not a problem. So I'm gonna continue with this one. So as you can see, I'm just tracing a bunch of polygons, and let's do the beak. I'm gonna exaggerate the beak a little bit. And here, because this image is slightly three-dimensional, I'm actually gonna trace these little outside ones just to give it a sort of three-dimensional look. I'm not gonna go precisely the way the image is showing me. Just gonna add that to add some sort of dimensionality. So here I'm going a little bit off the script of the image. And then let's see, I'm gonna add this one. I changed my mind about that one. All right, so I think that looks good. I'm gonna hide the image just to see. Yeah, that looks about right. And I did everything, and now I'm just gonna go back and sort of correct some things. And that's very easy because I can hit the select tool, this little arrow right here. And so, for example, I want this corner to actually match this corner right here. So I can always double click into it, and it will give me the option of moving those points. So at that point, I can move that point, and it's gonna sort of snap right there. Or not, I can do that again. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of what I wanted. And I think the eye might be a good addition. Well, let's decide about that in a moment. So this is my basic design. Now I want to give it some dimensionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose all the paths I just made. So I'm going to select by creating a window selection that grabs all the paths. And what I want to do is to give them a stroke. It's like, I don't want to give the paths a stroke. I'm not going to scare them, but I'm going to give them a certain thickness. So I'm going to, while they're all selected, I'm going to, here on the right-hand side, I see the stroke options. So I'm going to deselect the hairline. And as you can see, it looks a little messy because there are like spikes all over the place. But I decided that so let's deal with the thickness first. So I want a certain width for that. So I think, the ones I made before had a 0.06 inches for their width. But you can sort of decide that on your own. I'm gonna stick with 0.06 inches. The next little thing we need to do is that we wanna kind of soften it, so we don't want all those spikes poking up. And those spikes are poking because, as you can see, the corners of individual polygons, like the corner of this polygon, it's overlapping over the corner of that one. So what I want to do with all of these paths is that I want to change the way they're joined. So I'm going to make them round. And that immediately gives me a nice rounded look. So that is the trick here. And if you have any lines that might be poking, another thing you might do is change the cap to make that rounded. I'll explain. So let's say I have an additional line here. Quick explanation. And again, I give it some thickness. And so sometimes if the line is poking up, you don't want that sort of square look right there. So you would change the stroke property. Let's make these small so I can show you. The stroke property would be the cap. You want that rounded. So that gives me that kind of rounded edge. Just as an example. So this is looking good. At this point, because I gave it some thickness, I think this is all gonna kind of mesh together. So I'm gonna also deviate a little bit from my reference image in that I want the beak to be more recognizable. So I'm gonna double click here and then just make this bigger. So at this point, I just kind of need to modify those polygons. Same with these. This is just like my own sort of aesthetic choice. And this is now kind of moving there, so I'm gonna move it down. I'm gonna move this one out. Let's see. Yeah, it's getting there. So this polygon is kind of strange, but I think it gives it like a sort of dimensional, kind of three-dimensional look. And so one thing I noticed is that for some of these, you want to create a hole for your finding. But for some, it's not necessarily, you don't necessarily need to. Oh, yeah. So let me show you real quick. So for this one, I actually didn't make a hole for the finding. The finding being this little hook. Because that hole, the triangle just provided a place to put it. And I'm mentioning that because with this one, I think it would be perfectly fine to add the finding right here. So this design could be good, but I still want to show you how to add a little hole for the finding. So for that, we're going to grab a circle. And then we, just to keep the look similar, I want to give it the same thickness. So I'm going to, yeah, thank you, Ryan. So that is hidden by the logo. You guys know we are Cuttle. I'm gonna hide the logo for a moment. So. And then I'm gonna move this up to be clear. All right, so with the circle selected, I'm gonna also give it the stroke a bit of thickness, and I'm gonna do the same as we did before, 0.06 inches, and then I have two options here. I can either make it bigger to sort of guess the kind of look that I want, but if I want a very specific size for that hole, I can align the stroke. I'm gonna zoom in just to make it clear. If I change the alignment of the stroke to the outer, that means I know that at the end my hole is gonna be this size. It's gonna be 0.134 inches, and I realized that something like a 0.8 was sufficient for acrylic. So here we go, and that would be the hole for my find, a place to hang it, and I want that to be overlapping or touching. Yeah, here's a strange choice. Where do I put this thing? I think that would be okay. Yeah, something like that. Cool. So all the design process here was mostly, dealing with the black lines and just making sure our black lines look good. And so at the end, the last step here really is to select everything, and we'll use this super handy operation called Flatten. So I'm gonna go to the modify menu, and Flatten is almost all the way down here. And so this works because everything that was black is now joined, and I can show you that result. There's an option here called stroke result. And so this is what the laser cutter is going to cut. Otherwise, what would happen? Otherwise, what would happen is that the laser cut would cut on all these lines. So that's not necessarily what we want. So let me enable that again. And another option here is if we wanna. So I want to say I'm pretty much done with this project, but another option here is to. Now that I created this earring, I can move it aside, and then I can apply this mirror repeat to see roughly how it looks. Actually, more than that, I want to see how it looks, but this is the way I would want to cut it. Depending on the kind of acrylic that you're using, some of them will have a front and a back. So this is how I would want to cut these. So here at this point, I could go to File, and then I can export an SVG, like so. And here's my Dove origami earrings. So I said this was going to be I said this was going to be half an hour, so almost there. We're done with the tutorial itself. If anyone has any questions, I could answer them. Also, I am going to share this file, the one that you saw, so you can use the Dove. But if you don't have a Cuttle Pro account and you cannot upload images, the other thing I'm going to share is a series of images that you can use to trace your own. So I added the picture with the foxes, a couple of foxes there, a couple of cranes. I think this should be fun. I added the cicada. I think the cicada. Someone please make this cicada. I think is a cool one. There is the dog here. Duck, the hermit crab I mentioned before. I think this very angular design just looks very attractive. And I have a horse and the llama. And of course you can, hopefully this will get you started. So here's the dove. I'm also going to include in this file probably this video, very self-referential, but I'm going to add it here in the README. So I'm going to share these. Well, I'll share it right now. Just if you're really excited and want to get started, I'm going to grab the link here, and then I'm going to place it in the comments. So that's to get you started, but we'll put it also on the Facebook group. Cool. So I think I'm gonna hang out for a couple more minutes in case anyone has any questions. But if you have stuff to do and you only allotted half an hour for this, thank you for coming. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining the Facebook community. Thank you for being game for me doing my first live stream. Someone was saying that you always make things look so very easy. I know, yeah, I find that to be problematic, actually. It's deceiving. It's yeah, I guess I have a lot of practice, and then like, when I try to teach, I just make it look too easy, as if that was the way. But anyway, yeah, thank you. Somebody has a subscription question. Thank you, Rochelle. I'm glad you liked it. Says, could you show how you got rid of the lines in the center again? Yes. So the way I did that, I'm gonna go back a little bit. Just to repeat that, I probably went too fast there. So yeah, after we've traced everything, then we have all those lines in the center. Then what I did was select all of the project, and then I went to the modify menu, and then there is this modifier called Flatten that sort of flattens all the colors, or joins whatever is black and gets rid of whatever is white. And so by applying that modifier, Flatten, you can see it up here. And I can select, while this is selected, I can look at the stroke result. And so that's what converts all the black fills, or everything that's black, turns it into the Flatten. Then someone said, can you show again the function to name the cut lines not with the middle lines? Yeah, so that's Flatten. Cool. And then someone else asked, what is the flexible material that you used? So that is just plain silicone, that I actually is literally like a silicone mat that I got probably on eBay or Amazon. It's really thin, and it cuts fairly well in the laser cutter. We have a video where I explored some similar materials, so silicone that you can easily get as a, sometimes even at the 99-cent store. But we also did some EPDM rubber and other things. So I'll post a link to the video. Yeah, Toby posted it in the comments. Thank you. And then the other question, where do we find the pen? I'm assuming you are referring to the pen tool, and it's right up here in the top, the very simple menu that's right here on top. So if you click there, that's where you can use the pen tool. Cool. So I think that's pretty good for today. Just keep it short and sweet. I'm gonna end the live stream, and then there will be a recording. We'll be posting that. And again, thanks a lot for watching.